Welcome back to Why Be Wealthy. I'm Casey, and today I'm here with Jeff, the portfolio manager at Muhlenkamp.
Good morning, Casey.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the AI stock, which I know very little about and also am terrible with AI. So this should be an interesting conversation.
Okay. So when you think about AI as an investment, right, which is where I'm coming at. I'm not going to talk about whether it's moral and whether it's going to be the end of humanity and all those sorts of things.
Right.
But AI 2 or 3 years ago kind of popped on the scene as this really interesting computer program that caught everybody's attention because ChatGPT brought it out and said, look at the cool stuff you can do.
Right.
And everybody in Silicon Valley and kind of across the world said, oh my gosh, this is the next big thing. Mm-hmm. And what you've seen over the last probably 20 years, particularly in Silicon Valley, is all the big companies have in turn latched onto a big thing and missed a big thing.
Sure.
Right. So for instance, Microsoft missed mobile computing, mm-hmm. and it passed them by, and they became a very cheap stock because they missed it. And so when it popped onto the scene, everybody in that industry was very excited and said, I have to be involved in this next big thing or I will be left in the dust.
Right.
And so billions and billions and billions of dollars from several different constituencies have been poured into developing AI, mm-hmm. in the hope that the person providing the money is going to capitalize on this big thing. Right. So you've had private equity guys, you've had sovereign wealth funds, you've had pension funds, all put billions of dollars primarily into the ChatGPTs and the Anthropics of the industry, the ones actually developing the tool.
Yeah.
And then you've had the big tech companies, the Googles and the Amazons and the Microsofts, put hundreds of billion dollars into building out the computing capability that they think is going to be necessary to provide the infrastructure and the hardware to run all this software, to provide all this capability, etc.
Okay.
So a bunch of different people dumping hundreds of billion dollars in the hope that they will be the beneficiary of this transformational technology that's going to conquer the world, mm-hmm. right? And that's been going on now for 2 or 3 years, and it's been enormous,
right? And
it has fueled an enormous capital build out. Right, so NVIDIA's revenues climbed dramatically because they're selling chips, mm-hmm. and so, SK Hynix and Micron and the providers of the hardware that are necessary to build this stuff out. Really, I mean, their revenues are real.
Yeah.
Right, and they've really been providing this equipment. But what you haven't yet seen is the software guys, the Anthropics, make much money. Mm-hmm. So they've created this capability. And a lot of people are testing it, right? So companies across the planet are trying to figure out what to do with it and how to integrate it. And is it going to work for them? Is it going to make their life better? Is it going to make it more efficient?
Yeah.
So far, my conclusion is that they used to call it the killer app, mm-hmm. 15 or 20 years ago. Well, the killer app so far for AI is software development.
Okay.
And it really is a powerful tool to develop and write code.
Yeah.
And it dramatically increases the productivity of the coders and the companies that are writing code. So that's real.
Okay.
And that's worth, companies are paying for that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't justify all the build out and all the expense we've seen so far.
Right.
So, now investors who are providing most of the capital, not most of the capital, a big chunk of it's being provided by, Microsoft and Google and those guys. Mm-hmm. But everybody is continuing to think, what return am I going to get on my investment?
Right.
I've built this data center with the expectation of an increase in revenue and profits. Mm-hmm. Am I actually starting to realize that, or is it getting pushed back and it's not going to happen? Mm-hmm. So my personal take is, AI is real. Mm-hmm. It will be useful for some things. It's probably been overhyped and overbuilt.
Sure.
Which means that as people start to understand what it really can do and how to really use it, and almost as importantly, what to pay for it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look to me like one AI will conquer the world.
Right.
And become kind of a monopoly. Mm-hmm. It looks to me like there will be many, many AIs who will compete for that dollar in revenue, which means it's going to drive the price of AI down, which may well mean that because so many people have built so much AI, nobody makes any money at it.
Sure.
So all of that is kind of the background for saying, I think we're at best in an AI boom,
Right.
at worst in an AI bubble, but either way, we're building too much, we're spending too much. It won't last as long as people think, and it won't last as long as is kind of built into the stock price.
Right.
And there's going to be a reckoning.
Yeah.
After every boom, there's a bust. Every bubble bursts.
Right.
So, whether a boom or a bubble, that's kind of a degree kind of thing. How irrational did it get before it reverses and rationalizes? But I think from an investing perspective, we were invested in a couple of companies that were integral to the AI build out. We've divested all those by now.
Yeah.
I would argue we were early in doing so. We sold our Broadcom a year and a half ago. We sold our Maztec, which is a construction company that was benefiting from all the construction building. We just divested them in the last quarter or so.
Okay.
Right. So I have been actively minimizing my exposure to AI build out because I think that reckoning, the shift from boom to bust is relatively imminent.
Okay.
But I could be wrong on the timing. But I'm fairly certain on how it's going to eventually turn out.
Sure. And you mentioned the bubble. So are you seeing similarities between this like AI boom bubble and the .com bubble?
Yes. So the big difference is that, there are a lot more kind of hypothetical companies involved in the .com.
Okay.
Right? Companies with no revenues, no earnings, barely even had a business plan. You don't have that degree of nonsense. Right?
Okay.
You have real companies, Microsoft and Google, spending real money that they really have
Right.
on the Anthropics and the Chat GPTs. So there's not the degree of speculation, but the question remains, what return does Microsoft get on its investment? What really does Claude do for its users, and how much are they willing to pay?
Right.
And I think people are a little bit over optimistic right now.
I think so.
And I think they're going to end up there's going to be a collapse, and then things will rationalize, and I think there will be a lot of opportunity in that stock price collapse.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking for.
That makes sense, because even when we use Claude for like helping with whatever articles, we give it like information and past articles that I've written to kind of give it a voice, and then like let it run with it. But then I still have to go in and like change things around and make edits. So the AI like doesn't eliminate the human aspect of it. So it's not like Claude is going to take my job. It just saves me some time in my job. And so I think like same thing at doctors' offices when I go and they use the AI so that they don't have to type in notes, but they still have to go back and check the notes, because like, what if the AI heard something wrong and now you're telling me I have cancer and I don't have cancer?
Right. So, I've spoken with people who write code for a living, and they said, Jeff, it's kind of amazing. I used to have a list of 10 or 12 things I'd really like to do if I ever had the time. But I'm able to write code so fast now, I've worked through my list.
Wow.
So, that's where I'm searching for, where is the benefit real and meaningful? And so far my conclusion is it's real and meaningful in software development.
Yeah.
Which means, we're going to be able to do things in software that were prohibitive from a time and cost perspective, but now it's going to be much cheaper.
Sure.
And you've seen that impact the software industry, and the stocks in the software companies, they've all come way down as everybody fears that their industry is really going to get disrupted. And it's not quite clear exactly how it's going to be disrupted and who might survive and who's not going to survive. But that's a very interesting space.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
AI itself is just like, it's still like new and exciting. And I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I personally don't fully understand like how to use it, how it works, and all of that. So,
well, kind of from an investing perspective, stories sell, right? And so AI has a wonderful story. That story is used by everybody that's trying to raise money to build AI, right? To generate enthusiasm and excitement. But again, from an investing perspective, that's not where I like to go do my shopping.
Right.
Right. I don't like to do my shopping in something that is on top of everybody's mind and everybody's thinking about whether they know much about it or not. And everybody wants to be involved in it and into it because their neighbors are, but they don't really understand it.
Right.
Right. What that kind of environment does is it builds in a lot of hope into prices, and it jacks up the prices. That's the kind of environment I want to sell into.
Yeah.
If I had already bought, for whatever reason, ahead of that.
Right.
And now I get this excitement, and now people are basically paying me more for what I own than even I think it's worth. And that's where I want to be a seller. I want to be a buyer of the things that nobody cares about. It's completely disinterested. Nobody's talking about it, and the price reflects that. So I'm looking for businesses that are good businesses and profitable businesses, but don't have all that excitement and energy built into the stock price.
Right.
Right. And that's where I do my shopping, so that I can get, $1 worth of value for 80 cents. And then if the business does well, probably sooner or later that dollar will be worth $1.
Right.
And if I get lucky, then people get excited about it for some reason. And they don't want to pay me $1.30, $1.40, $1.50 for that dollar worth of company.
Right.
And then I'm pretty excited to sell into that. Yeah, I'm really getting a great price for this company, more than I expected I would.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we were with Broadcom. That's where we were with Mastech. Great companies, did great things as a business,
Right.
but were bid up to prices that frankly made no sense to me.
Sure.
I'm like, oh, this is great. Bid up what I own.
Right.
And I'll happily sell it to you at this price because I don't think that price will hold forever.
Right.
So far, I've been a little early, but
Nah.
we'll see how
Better
it
than
goes.
being late, I guess, right?
Yes. Better than being late.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good talking to you, Casey.
Good talking to you too. Thank you for joining us at YB Wealthy. Stay tuned for more.